Here's why you should start your Saturday with us.
Hello.
Good morning and welcome to your Saturday morning Waker Upper.
We ask precise questions.
It's very law that they are preaching. If they decide to share.
And get precise answers.
Whether it's PDP or APC, I don't care.
Although there are times simple questions cause commotion,
He came yesterday.
the drama could be hilarious
Politics of mediocrity, politics of prebendalism,
or contentious.
People are using my money to drive motor jeep.
But the home stretch could be enjoyable. Join us on Sunrise at 9 a.m. every Saturday on Channels Television.
Welcome back to Network Africa. It's a time to celebrate in Zimbabwe as the Constitutional Court has finally outlawed child marriage after two former child brides took the government to court in a groundbreaking case to challenge the practice. Loveness Muduzuru and Ruvimbo Sopodze couldn't have described the situation any better when they asked for child marriage to be declared illegal and unconstitutional, saying it was a form of child abuse which trapped girls in lives of poverty and suffering. The court ruled that as of January the 20th, that's 2 days now, no one in Zimbabwe may enter into marriage, including customary law unions before the age of 18, and also struck down a section of the Marriage Act which allows girls to marry at 16, but boys at the age of 18. Now, here's more on the causes of child marriage, why we see it happening so much, particularly in Africa. It's due to poverty. It's also due to the need to protect the girl's sexuality, and by that we mean the need to ensure that a girl stays a virgin until she's married. That is one of the beliefs. Also, it's due to gender discrimination, inadequate laws, and trafficking. The consequences of child marriage include the risk for HIV and other STDs, cervical cancer, childbearing children who end up bearing children. There's also increased maternal and infant health risks and greater exposure to domestic and sexual violence due to the young age at which most of these girls are given away in marriage. And also they are deprived of their childhood and future. But we're joined on Network Africa from London by the program manager of Womankind Worldwide, Laura Brown. Laura, thank you very much for joining us on Network Africa.
It's a pleasure. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you. Now, this is a very significant step. How do you view what's happened in Zimbabwe?
As you said before, it's a landmark day for women's rights in Zimbabwe. I was also reading the post this morning in the Huffington Post, and it's really inspiring to see that not only has the situation changed from a legal perspective, but it's also been brought about by two of the people most affected themselves. They have obviously felt empowered enough to actually take on the legal system in Zimbabwe, which is no mean feat, and been able to bring about some fundamental changes. So it's a great day for women's rights in Zimbabwe.
Laura, the thing that really stands out here is the fact that it took just two girls to get this law out of the way, to get it out of the Constitution. So what lessons can we draw looking at what such a seemingly small step was able to accomplish?
Mm-hmm. Well, as has been reported, the Constitution in Zimbabwe was changed in 2013, and women's rights organisations were fundamental in actually informing the process of development of the Constitution. They grouped together in a coalition to really try and raise the profile of the issues that are faced by many women and girls across Zimbabwe, and were successful in bringing about 85% of the things that they asked for. But one of the big challenges, and I think something that's been raised by the case that you've just been mentioning is the fact that while the Constitution is in place, there aren't the laws that are following on from the Constitution in practice. So this is one of the big challenges for organisations such as the Zimbabwe Women's Lawyers Association, who are seeing these cases on a regular basis and trying to work with the beneficiaries who are affected. But the actual laws need to come into line with the Constitution in order that it doesn't have to be young girls that bring this to justice. It's actually brought to justice in a regular way by a variety of stakeholders, and everybody is aware of it. So a big lesson is that that the actual laws need to be brought in line with the Constitution more quickly in order for more cases to be brought to light by more stakeholders.
Well, Laura, we're both familiar with this cliche that rules are made to be broken. That's a basis for my last question. I'm asking what measures we need to see put in place to ensure that this law is properly enforced.
I think it will take a collective action to ensure that this law is actually enforced. I think the media attention that will have been brought to this case will actually be really supportive in trying to raise awareness among key decision makers. The government obviously is a key decision maker, but lots of people within the government as well. But it will probably be used as an example with women's rights organisations about actually pushing the changes to the law more quickly. I think there's a big stagnation in terms of changes between the Constitution and the laws being put into practice. So I think it's not just women's rights organisations that would need to work in isolation. I think they need to be working with a whole range of different actors on this. Community actors, community leaders, members of the government across different parties, in order to kind of raise the issue and keep pushing for the issue, because it is in the Constitution. Yes. It just needs to be continually enforced, across the board.
Yes. Laura, thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Laura Brown is the Program Manager of Womankind Worldwide, speaking with us from London. Well, it's a season of reports and press releases. Last week, we saw a report from the United Nations regarding Burundi. Later that week, we also saw a press release from Amnesty International regarding the use of child labor in the DRC. And today, another report has emerged regarding South Sudan. Today's report was released by the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and it suggests that there have been a widespread of human rights violations committed by all parties to the conflict since December 2013, including hundreds of extrajudicial killings and forced disappearances, sexual violence, forced recruitment, and indiscriminate attacks against civilians.
A new report by the United Nations Mission and the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights shows that widespread human rights violations and abuses have been committed by all parties to the conflict since December 2013. The report says the conflict is characterized by sexual violence, extrajudicial killings, forced recruitment of children, and enforced disappearances, crimes committed by both sides.
Sexual violence is also one of a key issue. People are talking to us on the ground and saying that there are situations of gang rapes, sexual slavery, forced abortion, all terrible crimes for which there has been impunity so far.
Children have not been spared. The report cites that the conflict has thousands of child soldiers forcefully recruited.
Their numbers is estimated between 13 to 15,000 children who've been forcibly recruited by either side of the conflict, but mainly by opposition forces.
It also notes that there are no safe havens, with attacks on places of worship, hospitals, and from time to time on the United Nations bases.
Also noticed a very disturbing new pattern of entire villages being burned down, with livestock being stolen and food being burned as well, which tends to show that there is an intention to force civilians, to displace forcibly civilians, and those mainly responsible for these terrible allegations are or according to witnesses, the army or the government.
The United Nations has documented rape as a weapon of war. In June 2008, the UN Security voted unanimously for a resolution describing rape as a tactic of war and a threat to international security.
Still to come on Network Africa, Ghanaians take to the streets. They've had just about enough of the government's tariff increase. Details in just a moment.